What's up, y'all? It's Will here at Schedulefly, and this is an episode with a longtime customer and a friend, John Seelbinder. He's been on the podcast a few times. We caught up about what's been happening the last couple of years, what's happening going forward. This dude is just such a sharp operator, knows the business so well, very creative guy. I have a lot of respect for him, the way he runs his businesses, and we talked for, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes. Could have talked to him for a couple hours. Every time I ask him a question, I learn something. So the episode sponsored by Schedulefly. Listen, there are tens of thousands of restaurants and bars and hospitality businesses out there, ice cream shops and coffee shops and breweries and boutique hotels and golf courses that still schedule on pencil and paper or Excel. And there are new places opening their doors all the time. And if you know one, let them know about Schedulefly. We are the perfect fit for an audience that wants a very simple, easy-to-use software and great customer support. And we have grown for 15 years by word of mouth, and we'll keep doing that. Any word of mouth you can share is awesome, and we'd love you for it, and we'd appreciate you. And if you're listening and you want scheduling to be easy and communication to be simple and have everything be clean and have a small team that'll take great care of you, Schedulefly.com. Give us a look. Free 30-day trial. Also, Flip, which is a partner of ours, FLYP. Go to flipmoney.com or go in the App Store and look for Flip, FLYP. This is modern banking. It's a debit card based account, free. If you fund it with $100 and you use the promo code Schedulefly, you'll get $20 back right away. Free access to 37,000 ATMs. And what these guys are doing, which is really cool, is they're gamifying the debit card. So just as you get a credit card and you get rewards for spending, every time you use your Flip card, you get to spin the Flip wheel, and you can get up to 110% cash back. And they also have Flip coins and other things you can compile to buy gift cards with for. So it's really cool. Check it out, flipmoney.com. Flip is spelled FLYP. Thank you all for listening. More of these coming soon. Have a good one. All right, we are live. John, introduce yourself.
Sure. John Seelbinder. I have a hospitality group called Local Icon Hospitality in Raleigh, North Carolina. We've got a collection of speakeasies, restaurants, a brewery, and busy bar with the DJ and bottle service.
All right, and you've also got not a new, but you bought a hotel.
Oh yeah, I did buy a hotel. I've got a small inn built in the 1940s in Spruce Pine, North Carolina, just hanging off the side of a mountain.
Dude, your ability to balance a lot of stuff is amazing to me. For those of you listening, John has been on this podcast before, so we won't go back into this is probably like your third, fourth time, something like that.
Yeah, man, it's an honor every time. We did the Zoom calls during COVID.
Yeah.
We did a couple before COVID, and we've done one or two after, I think.
So I've been fortunate to get to know John over the years. I mean, he and I probably first talked like 6, 7, 8 years ago or something like that. And luckily, while his businesses are, the hotels in the mountains, and he's got his restaurants and bars up in Raleigh, he lives really close to me in the Charlotte area. So we get to hang out here and do this today, and I'd consider John not just a customer but a friend, and we actually just spent, I don't know, like an hour just catching up on life and everything else. So we also have a blower here that's decided to get blowing, but hopefully in the other direction. Well, look, man. So, what's the biggest thing on your mind these days? Kind of coming out of COVID, and we're finally, that took forever. It seemed like we kept trying to figure out whether we were going to go back into masking and back into shutdowns, and then all this kind of stuff happening, and most people were doing takeout, and here we are. We're getting back to some sense of normalcy here in the end of the summer of 22. It was a hard for people to find people to work for a while. Is that becoming a little bit easier? And what are What are you mainly focused on these days?
Yeah, well, let's focus on the positive first. We were just talking about it a minute ago. And, first and foremost, trying to be a place where people want to work, that they love to work, and fostering that culture, so to speak. Sorry, I got a frog in my throat there. I think that's the only thing that kind of helped us through last year. There was an impossible force of trying to find people to work last year, and it was all, I think that one of the only things that was successful with us was the word of mouth. Do you have a cousin? Do you have a friend? Do you have a friend who has a friend? We really like you. Do you have any other people that that might want to work here? And you ask the same question every day, over and over again, and that's where we stay staffed. I think the front of the house is a little easier on that aspect. The back of the house is pretty tough. It's just been exponentially tougher than I feel like it even was before COVID, and it was pretty tough then. So I think the biggest challenges on the flip of that coin, the things that we think about the most, I think it is really hard to find management at the moment, seasoned management, and there's a vacuum in the workplace, I think, in that level right now. And we've got some folks that we've put in positions that we pour a lot of love and effort into that potentially aren't quite ready for those positions yet, that we feel like would have been there sooner or later. But I think one of the hardest things I've had a hard time doing abnormally more than before is really getting enough resumes in to hire management. And I think there's some people that went to other industries during COVID. There was some shutdown, but there was also some growth. And then there was the vacuum last year where, suddenly the governor was like, okay, it's Tuesday, you can open on Friday. And it was this mad scramble for people. And we had a few folks that were with us beforehand, but to be honest, some of my most tenured employees, a couple of them, one in particular, one of my managers, he left and moved to Texas to run heavy equipment during COVID. So, a few of them were working construction and saying, man, this is way easier than working in restaurants and bars in a way, And then folks are starting to come back because we all have it in our blood. The hospitality, the guest experience, that sort of thing doesn't always exist elsewhere. So one of the biggest things that, just to get back to your question, 2022 is the slinky effect of what happened last couple of years. I think the prices of inflation soaring, food costs, supply chain. Unfortunately, there's very few industries right now that aren't being forced to raise prices. We're paying people more than we ever have before. We're paying more for things than we ever have before. So how do we keep the revenue to keep the doors open? You can only do that two ways: put more butts in the seats. Or get a little bit more from the butts that are in the seats, and that's just an unavoidable fact. Those are the big things on my mind right now.
Is inflation? Is it still going up, or is it starting to soften a little bit? Or
I think it just fluctuates. It's up. I think a lot of things are up. Labor dollars are up for sure, and you're having to pay people more because they've got to eat and they've got to survive, and gas is up, but back down a little bit, but still up, right? I think there's some things that jumped up so high. Avocados, beef, limes, even eggs for a while, and some stuff has come back down, but it's still 10, 15, 20% higher than what it was. So I think if you really drill into the economics of it all, it's almost like a psychological thing. It's like it jumped up, but then it came down a little bit, but we're still way up. So we haven't raised our prices. But like 3 different bar groups that don't even do food, and the liquor prices have stabilized, but the labor dollars have gone up. They raised their prices across the board 2 Saturdays ago. That was like a big thing for those groups.
Yeah. How about have you made any adjustments to? You mentioned something about like, okay, so your manager that was seasoned went to Texas to work in heavy equipment, and started realizing, okay, well maybe the maybe this is easier than the restaurant industry. I mean, the restaurant industry is hard. It's a hard business. You really do have to have that hospitality gene. But does the industry have to find, whether it's fewer hours or better benefits or some combination of both, more of the what you might call like the normal work-life balance and benefits to keep good people?
I think any job this day and age, and especially ours, we need to figure out ways to do that. And in order to do that, there are a lot of neat kind of new things that come out. I mean, you just mentioned a potential debit card partnership that you guys,
Flip,
do. Yeah, with Flip.
Yeah.
So many people I see in our industry, like, a lot of these folks get paid. They don't have a direct deposit. They don't even have a bank account. I get a lot of calls from the bank. Hey, can we cash this check for this person? They're here at the counter. So, and then there's a percentage of us that have relatively, I worked in it forever. I was a manager and a bartender for more years than I've been an owner, right? And there were those of us that had it together just a little more, but I see a lot more now. I mean, I've got managers without cars. They've just fallen privy to the Uber generation. They're spending twice as much on Ubers than they would be on a car. The health insurance thing, the retirement, and for a small business, you just got to get real creative in finding those things that would be helpful for someone to keep their life kind of in balance, right? And I think the work-life balance thing right now, I heard something not long ago. I mean, it's all life, right? Like I was at a conference and there was a guy that was pretty influential in the industry, and he's like, it's all life, right? Like work is what funds your life, and life is what you do to enjoy yourself when you're not at work. So the balance, can't be all one or the other, right? And that standard work-life balance conversation is interesting. So we constantly need to figure out what that means, and there needs to be a little bit more of a status quo to that, in my opinion, to not use status quo as a negative word. But what does that really mean? Like some folks might say, well, I'd like to work 3 days and be off for 4 days. And the restaurant industry's been a 6-7 day a week grind for forever. I've talked to plenty of folks that work for, Tao Group in New York City, and talked to a girl once, and she was like, I've worked 28 days in a row. 28 days in a row. And, and it's almost like a badge of courage in this industry. And so coming out of COVID, one thing that I did, I went dark on Mondays. Like, we don't open, and I don't know if I ever will again, or at least one day a week in each one of my locations. There might be some that are closed on Sunday and some that are closed on Monday. One that's closed Sunday and Monday. But what that does is no matter what, that protects that one day, no matter what. The longest, I mean, look, if we have a catering or we have an event that day, maybe, but the longest run you're going to be on is like a 6-day run. Worst case scenario, most of the guys and girls we've got working, around 5.5 days is where we're at. And we found that's a sweet spot. So the half day's that admin day. And if we can get that on the front end of the week, there's just so much to do in this business, so many moving parts. You got to do your orders, and you got to do your payroll, and you've got to do these things. And then you've also got to be face forward with the guests too, So when the work week starts, it's real hard not to get behind. So we found that extra 3 or 4 hours in the beginning of the week, that time blocking, even though that's an extra day of some work, it sets up the rest of the week to have a better work-life balance. It's not just a total scramble till the end of the week, and so that's what's working for us right now. That might not be ideal in other groups, but we found like the 5-day work week, folks are coming in and they're so far behind to get ready for our Tuesday meetings and get their stuff done that they're just shot by the end of the day on Tuesday. So that extra few hours kind of sets them up for success.
You said one of the things you got to do is either get more butts in the seats or sell more things to the butts that are there. Like, tell me more about that. Which one is harder to do, and which one are y'all doing well, and what are the things you're doing to make that happen?
Well, I think the butts in the seats every day of the every which way you look at it, the more full you are. And granted, there's a certain point where you can't give everything away or you'll lose your ass, so to speak. But the price point's got to make sense. But the butts and the seats are the key. It's a people business. You got to have the right people on the schedule. Right, schedule to me is everything. That's why I talk about that all the time, nonstop, and everything. If the schedule's right and you got the right people on the schedule, you can move mountains. And you gotta have the people coming in the door. I mean, revenue fixes a lot of problems, and the raising of the prices within reason. It's weird. There was this interesting shift, I feel like, in the last 7 or 8 or 9 years, that if you charge too little, people didn't associate value with it. The old, here, everything's, we got a special, we got this killer special, or this day where everything's like on a fire sale almost. It's weird. It's like people wanted to spend more the last 8 or 10 years. They wanted to associate what they were buying with a certain price tag, and I think that's where the rebirth of the quote unquote fancy restaurant came back. If you recall, like 8, 9, 10, 11, Ruth's Chris was closing restaurants,
right?
And the white tablecloth dining experience was gone, and I think there was a small gap in the chef-driven kind of wine program-driven places, and then suddenly 13, 14, everything started coming back there, and it was not unheard of at all to go out and 2 people spend $130 to $150 for dinner. Yeah. So, in some aspects, we're a little bit more casual, and we switched to a small plates menu, which has been incredible for us, especially with the workforce. Instead of a coursed menu, everything comes out as it's made, so it's not as hard on the kitchen. It's an elevated way of dining, even with simple food, because you get to try a little bit of everything. Yep. That was a big thing for us, and that helped with our portion sizes and our price points too. So we were able to for instance, our tacos, we used to do 3 tacos and rice and beans and like an entree driven plate, and now we do 2 smaller, like easy to eat tacos they come out two to a plate, and then everything's kind of a la carte, small plates, and it's been a win for us. It's helped our food cost. It's helped our kitchen, even with folks that are a little less seasoned, be able to keep up in a volume situation. We still get, in the weeds when we're down a person, of course, and that happens. And I think that's the tough part about, kitchens are really tough. They just are. The food game is tough, but, it's been awesome for us. We've got a couple menus that I'm really happy with. They're both small plates driven. One is a higher end kind of American pub fare, steak frites and black pepper aioli sliders and shishito peppers and stuff like that. And then the other one is Virgil's, the traditional Mexican, and both of them are small plates now. So that's been helpful with our price points, right? Like, even though some stuff's cheaper, per item, it's our check average went up a bit because folks are ordering 2 or 3 different things versus just an appetizer and an entree, and then they're out.
And your places are all in downtown, what would be considered downtown Raleigh?
Yeah, they're all within 5 blocks of each other.
What's changed in downtown Raleigh over the last couple of years?
Man, that's a magic question too. So the downtown side of Raleigh, so the Glenwood South area in Raleigh just ballooned and just is, just busting at the seams. Part of that happened.
Glenwood South is where your brewery is?
Yeah, over closer to where the brewery is. The other side down near Fayetteville Street, the downtown proper area, was really, 2011 all the way through about 2019 into 20 was just stroking. That was a cool area. It was the first time that area had popped off. Glenwood South has popped and died. This is now the 3rd time it's popped and really hit hard. It's been doing that off and on since the early 2000s. So there's a neighborhood shift. So the downtown side of Raleigh, like the downtown proper, which is the Fayetteville side, which is the majority of my concentration, we're working really hard down there to, I love that side of town. I love the old buildings, the downtown concentration, the vibe. There's always been a good, cocktail, food. Most of Ashley Christensen's places are down there. She's been pretty well focused in that side of town. My good buddy Sonny, he's got St. Rock over there. They're doing really well. And then there's, the Foundation and Anchor Bar and some of these little cocktail bars over there, and then there's us. I just opened the Merchant last year. It's been super well received. Virgil's has been there for 7 years now, and then the Architect's been there for 10 or 11, and then the Greenlight is inside the Architect. So most of my stuff is right there. Greenlight continues to just pop up just randomly in all these articles. I mean, it was had like 15 seconds of fame in Rolling Stone in March of 2020, and then I just saw a couple of one blogger in particular. It's got a really good following on Instagram locally and popped up. It's cool when you see your places pop up and it's not something you pitched or you knew somebody was going to brag on your place and you see it up. I mean, that's really cool. It's still imposter syndrome a lot when I walk into my places. I'm like, how the hell do these people know to come here? Like, I didn't call them, I didn't email them, I didn't text them. They're here. And that's really cool, especially when your places take on a life of their own. But honestly, I mean, to be truthful and just transparent, which is sometimes I'm a little overly transparent, but downtown Raleigh really got beat up really bad during COVID, during the riots, and they're scratching their heads and trying what they can to kind of revitalize the neighborhood. But those of us that are down there, we're working really hard to do business. Like, we've been putting the elbow grease in. It has not been, the density is everything sometimes, and the more the merrier. The more busy places you have around you, usually the more busy your place is. Some people look at that as competition, but you really got to look at that as neighborhood density, right? And that's good for business. It's a little quieter than it was. It's starting to come back around. They just the city of Raleigh just put a social district in place, so you can leave, and we have plastic cups, and we write a sticker on there, and we say where you're coming from and what time. And we put your drink in a plastic cup, and you can walk on the street and drink it. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, on the Fayetteville side of downtown. So that was interesting. It just popped off last week. We're still kind of seeing what it's going to do. It's a little weird. They stop at 10 p.m., which is 10 p.m. on a Friday or Saturday. It's like, here's your drink. It's 15 till 10. Don't get caught on the street, or you might get in trouble. So. But I mean,
maybe that'll change it. That sounds like a compromise. Somebody was like, okay, we'll do it, but cut it off at 10.
Yeah, it should change. But there's those things going on. And then just downtown Raleigh as a whole, it's just a place that people want to be. I mean, they're just same as Charlotte, same as, Nashville, Austin, Greenville.
But is there a lot of, like, you've got you're the capital, so you got a lot of government stuff down there. Do people live in, is there more residential down there than there used to be? And then do you also have fewer office people now? I mean, a lot of people have so much flexibility with their jobs now. Like, maybe they worked in one of those big towers, but they're only there 2 days a week in the office instead of 5 and stuff like that. Like, the flow that?
Yeah, the density's changed for sure. Yeah. I mean, I shut down Linus and Peppers coming out of COVID, and I stopped doing lunch. And I don't know that I ever want to do lunch again.
Linus and Peppers was your okay. What's there now?
More Virgil's. Like, we expanded Virgil's into there, and so Virgil's is now cocktails and cocina. So we try to focus on cocktails, and again do that more small plates, kitchen style menu. But yeah, the density's down. We've got a little co-working office at one of those nice, fancy, cool co-working spaces across the way there. And at one point, they were like 10% occupied last year, and now they're getting back up. But I don't know where they are now. I'd say probably still only like 30 or 40%, as opposed to 100 pre-COVID, or 90 or 85 or whatever it was. And so, I mean, I think there's traffic down there during the day. There really is. But again, I just the dynamic has shifted. There's just so many people working at home now. There really are.
This popped into my head talking about downtown Raleigh. I just saw the other day that Cheaty's is closing Garland.
Yeah, Garland's closing. Soul closed here in Charlotte.
Did she close? Just they weren't, or do you know?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure.
I mean, I know she's doing something else, but that was a big surprise. I mean, Garland's been like really popular, successful place for a long time.
I've seen a few close recently this month.
What closed here in Charlotte?
Soul Gastropub.
Soul Gastropub. Yeah, I think they were a customer.
Landlord problems. There was a place called Braza, Brazilian Steak House in Raleigh. Payman had that place forever, and I saw landlord problems with that.
So you say landlord problems? Are people, because landlords are getting tougher on rent, or jacking up rent prices because they're.
I mean, coming out of COVID, they all. I mean, a lot of them doubled down, raised rent 50% because they could. I think here's the deal. I think if I could.
Could they raise rent because people were getting PPP and they knew, or like what? Because that seems tough. Like
I gave concessions during COVID, then hit on the back end coming out of it. Everybody was. There was just so much money that went into the world.
Yeah.
And I think there was we talk about inflation, but we also talk. It's just an unrealistic inflated dollar. And a lot of people came from California and New York to our neck of the woods, and prices started going up. But I think at the end of the day, between the much higher food cost, the increased labor, the really, really tough, labor market for some. I mean, culture kind of helps that when you can keep people around. But I just don't think there's the buffer to brace for all three of those. You're looking at all three of your prime costs, right?
Yeah.
Every one of them up. If your rent goes up, you used to kind of say, okay, I'll offset that and I'll raise, my price is $1. It's been 10 years since I've raised my prices. But now you're looking at your labor, your cost of goods, and your rent. And those are your three prime costs. So when those reach 100% or more, you got nothing left for anything else. Like, what do you do? And I think there's enough of us that had a couple of quiet moments during COVID that sometimes it's easier to say, what are we really killing ourselves for every day, other than the fact that we absolutely love what we do, and it's an incredible industry, and it's just the gratification you get from it when things go well is certainly addictive, and that's why a lot of us do it. I don't know. I think that's my theory right now. I'm seeing it. We're just kind of watching our numbers ourselves, and it's like, how do you make the numbers work, right? And if you can't, what are you doing? What are you tapping into? What are you foregoing, time or money in life to keep your business open, and so, some folks are quoting, increased rent. Some folks are quoting, leases have run out. Some people are quoting, higher labor, higher food costs. My buddy Matt Kelly, they shut down St. James. I saw the other day over in Durham, and he had a similar thing happen with the fire that happened near Little City Brewing back in the day, but they had a gas explosion, and right after he opened his restaurant, it just closed it for a year and a half while they were rebuilding it, or a year or whatever else. It was a similar situation. So we're seeing a few, man. We're seeing a few close down, and COVID to me was the easy part, even though it was scary, right? But we were all screwed. A lot of us were all shut down. Nobody knew what to really expect. The reopening part was really challenging, man. Yeah. It's been really expensive. It's been a big tax on time and well-being and stress, and it's just you're pushing against a pretty firm wall, to try and push through it.
Yeah, it's been the last or the next year, that is. It's going to be. I'm very curious to see what happens over the next year.
Yeah, I think
I feel like it's got to level off at some point. I don't know. I mean, we pumped $9 trillion. We just printed $9 trillion. So that was just. There's just no way for.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of freaking money.
A lot of money, right? Like we talked about the deficit in the hundreds of billions at one point, and then the deficit ticker, had flipped over to $1 trillion, and then however many years ago that was, and now we just flooded the market with $9 trillion or.
Well, But, one thing that's been true, it's one of the things I love about restaurants so much, it's been true throughout humanity, is people like to congregate around other people and be well taken care of and feel welcome and have a good meal and spend important moments with friends and family and loved ones. And they find a way. That's just not going to change. But maybe there's, it'll be interesting to see how many places can make it through to the other side. I'm assuming all these places that close down. If these landlords are jacking up rent, like who's gonna fill these places? We always need, there's always a place for chains and all that kind of stuff. But man, no matter where you are, every cool city is, you ask like, why is that a cool city? Well, one of the first things people will say is all the cool restaurants and bars, and those are all independent, locally owned.
It's usually the very first thing, right?
Yeah,
I I was talking. So I went to the Air Force Academy and back in the late '90s, and my absolute best friends in the world. So some of them are those folks that I went to school with there, and they've all done really well in their careers. Right? They're, and my closest friend, my roommate from my freshman year, he's in a command job in Kuwait right now. He's doing a year over there, and so we talk twice a day, every day. He calls it.
Oh, wow.
At 11 or midnight when he's getting up at 6 or 7, already up, 6 or 7 in the morning there. And then I call him around 11 or noon the next day when it's 6 or 7 p.m. there, right? And, we always share these common stories. And at the root of it, when you're leading people, whether they're hosts and servers or, some of his troops there, we find some commonality in the human puzzle of the whole deal, right? Like there's so many similarities because you're really just trying to get people in the right direction and provide them kind of path to walk down, right, and accomplish your mission in the same breath. But for some reason, like 2 nights ago, I was up and I was going to bed and we were talking and I just verbalized this business. I was like, I don't know any other business like this in the world. I can't think of any other industry where, so if you get down to it, right, like food is a necessity, right? Like it's a necessity, food and water and air. And, we serve food, which, is a luxury to go out, but like you said, you celebrate moments, you enjoy yourself, you relax, you want to be served, and that's our job to do that. But you could go eat anywhere, you could really eat anything, and so you come and you spend your time with us, and we are managing those expectations, delivering a service, and then at the same time we're face front with you, right? Like we're there to make sure that you enjoy your time with us, right? And we can't. I mean, maybe you can, but the whole human interaction of that thing is what the deal is, right? And and drinking, and I mean, I love cocktails and drinking and making beer and all that stuff. I mean, that to me is what I've been doing for the longest part of this whole gig, and that is, that's a luxury. I mean, really, you're leaving. It was funny because my buddy was like, yeah, he's like, what's crazy about it? You come in, you spend money, and you leave with nothing, right? Like you leave with an experience, right? Yeah, like right. You don't take any of the goods with you. You maybe a to-go bag or something like that. So we were trying to think, we were racking our brain, like what else is there that's like that, right? Like what is it where you can make a choice to go out and enjoy yourself in a public space and have someone wait on you or serve you, provide an experience, whether it's a DJ and music or whether it's sit down service or whatever, and then you pay for that, right? And then you leave, and for us, the business it's very transactional, right? Like it's
sure.
It's so you look at the little hotel thing which is kind of cool. It's like the perfect balance between, like Airbnb and hospitality. It's like 16-room little hotel. And it's really cool because it's a transaction, but it's not an hour and a half transaction. And then that person's out and the next person's in, right? And at the same time, you've got somebody managing. This is what was kind of the kicker. And I was on a ramble, and it was kind of like, I'm like, how the hell have I never said anything even remotely like this? But it was like, with the handheld toast POS now, like your servers can handle a bigger section these days, because you don't have to leave and run back and forth to POS terminal. But so you figure maybe, a server's got 8 tables with anywhere from 4 to 8 people at each table, right? So you've got 8 different pods of personalities, right? Social pods. And in those social pods, you've got another 2 to 8 different personalities going on there. And you're trying to connect with all of them and, provide them an experience before they leave. And you've got an hour and a half to do it, right? So it's just, I don't know. It's kind of something that kind of, to me, I mean, obviously it's kind of obvious, but the verbalization of it to me was kind of eye-opening. So like, what else do you do that's like that? And I'm racking my brain, like, what else? I mean, you're just talking about 20 to 35 people, completely different people in different kind of social networks that you're serving during that hour and a half, And
and that's what's so challenging is that you've got to find people that, can handle that can do it well, can make it authentic, can make it enjoyable, and then find a way to pay them enough to make them want to keep doing it. I mean, there's people that have hospitality in their veins, and that's why they do what they do. Some people do it just to make a little extra money and, whatever. But finding those people that can do that consistently so that those pods want to be like, man, that was a really cool experience. Let's go back there the next time we have something. Super big, hard part of the challenge. It's great that you've got your buddy having somebody to share that with. That's a big advantage for you. I mean, I think just being able to talk through that with somebody that's doing something completely different, but also trying to lead people.
Well, it's funny. I said to him, we went to the Air Force Academy, very prestigious institution, very hard to get into, very hard to finish. And then I have the pleasure at times. I mean, it's a gift and a curse. When I'm low on managers, I step in and I operate, right? And as an owner, I've got a whole nother job that I need to be doing, but I get a lot of enjoyment out of being there.
Right.
Sooner or later, I got to kind of take a step back because I might put too much personal emotion into it, but while I'm there, really enjoy working with, most of the time these kids, and it's like my saying is, and I'll tell it to some of the ones that have been around a little bit longer because they know me enough to understand what it means. But I said, the saying is trick everybody into doing the right thing, right? And that's a win for everybody. It helps, it helps the guest, it helps the business, it helps the person, it helps the operator. It ultimately, and what I mean by trick is how can we manage, these expectations not to come in to just punch the clock, serve some foods, get through the weeds, serve some food and drinks, get through the weeds, and then clock out, right? It's how do we do the right thing, every time we walk in. And that's everything from, seat numbers to how we greet the table to how we give them service throughout and how we ring the tickets in for the kitchen. What are all the right things that we do in the business? And I was saying to my buddy, I was like, you've got these Air Force Academy graduates, these majors and oil captains or first and second lieutenants, really. I was like, I'm looking at these, 19 and 20 and 22-year-old servers and hosts, and some of them in college and home for the summer, go to really good schools. And I was like, they're performing in a weird way on the same level that your lower level officers are performing. And I mean, it's kind of crazy to say, but it's true. They're managing a lot of tasks at one time.
Yeah. Except
they're face forward with folks that literally you're supposed to be, providing a level of, you're supposed to treat them like they're a guest in your house, right?
Yeah.
So you're not only doing your job, but you're having to please people along the way, and it can be challenging. And just to relate on that level, it's kind of cool. So there's just a lot of commonality in businesses and human beings. I think at the root of it, you look at a P&L, or you look at the fact that, taking care of human beings and leading human beings in the right direction is a very challenging and important thing in almost any business, and there's a lot of commonality there. So I do feel, very lucky that I can hear ideas with, everyone calls me Seal. That's my nickname, but he's like, Seal, do you ever think about saying it this way? Or have you ever tried this? And I'm like, I've never tried that. And a lot of times you might brush that off and go, well, that doesn't really work in our industry. But I think there is an evolution to take the hospitality business and inject more more business forward kind of ideas into that. And to get back to your question about just taking care of our people, how as a small business do we lean on some of these resources to make it, more beneficial for them too?
Do you read?
I am a terrible reader because I never finish.
Well, I asked that question because I was just curious if you read leadership books or anything. I just picked up Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. Literally 5 pages in kind of thing. But
you talk about Jocko a lot.
Yeah, great podcast, great leader. Great. I always say his good video on YouTube is, the best 3 minutes on YouTube, and that's where he just talks about every time there's a problem. His response is always good. And I'm not even making this up. I watch that video at least once a month because I feel like it keeps my brain moving in the right direction with something bad happens, right? Like, okay, that sucks. Good. Here's why we're going to turn this into something that, we'll get better from. But extreme ownership is, his whole mantra is like, it's great to own every problem. It's great to own things that, you might say, well, that's not really my fault. Well, if you own it, then that's great, because now you get to solve it, right?
Yeah, and I mean, when I say I'm a terrible reader, I just wish I was more voracious. It's
hard to find time. I mean, when you
just to stay focused on it, consistency. Read 10 pages a day, and I love reading. I love picking up these books and just light bulb moments going off and being like, wow, that was incredible. And so, I've got a stack that I need to work through right now, and I'm giving myself my own advice. Why don't I just read 10 pages a night?
Yeah, man, there you go.
It's like working out. Like, just do it every day. Don't make it perfect. Just do it every day. But yeah, I do love those books. I will tell you on a fun level, I listened to McConaughey's book when I was driving back and forth from Charlotte to Raleigh. It was amazing.
I got that from my wife. She's a big McConaughey.
Oh, it was
She
great.
would leave me for him in a second.
The audio
she really liked it.
He narrated the audiobook, and it was just fucking awesome.
What's the premise? I don't even know.
I mean, it's just his life. It's green lights, right? Like, how do you turn? The little moments through your life. The title is green lights, and what are your red lights, your yellow lights, your green lights, and it's just kind of that journey through. At what moment do you think it's a red light, and then eventually it's a green light, right? I mean, he talks about walking through, South America, floating down the Amazon on his back, like naked, like all kinds of crazy stuff, I mean, it was awesome, dude, and how he lived in that Airstream for a while, and like he would just go from town to town, and if he had to do a business meeting, he'd pick an exec up, and they'd drive to the next town and do the business on the way, and then get on a plane and fly out. And that was how the deals got done, right? So it was a really good book. I think it's a little bit inspirational and fun, and I mean, just talking about how quick somebody's life changed when he jumped into that role in Dazed and Confused. That was like he was just supposed to have like a couple of lines, and he ended up being a full-on character in the movie, and that was it.
Great character.
It just happened so quick, but. You were talking
Wooderson.
Yeah, man. You were talking about the Jocko thing, but I think it just is a testament. We were talking before here about, you hit such a challenge. You guys hit such a challenge last year, this year with the thing you had to push through, and you were just so open and transparent about everything, and talked to everybody every day and got through it. And I think that was a big deal, man. I can't imagine like what you were feeling. Well, I feel like I've
for those of you listening, we got briefly we got hit with a ransomware attack on January 1st of this year at 6:30 a.m. and we were down for like 12 days, and so we were very, we kind of did like a daily video, let people know what was going on, and we're very open, and just that turned out to be a good thing. But well, I can't tell you how many times I watched that freaking good video during that, because
every day, 2 times a day.
Oh, dude, I kept going, okay, this is tough, but good, and on the other side of it, like it actually is, because we're, we are so dang secure now, you can't ever say never, and no business can, but it really forced us to go in and make a lot of additional investments, and we just, turn that into something that's, we and our customers are better off for it here, 8-9 months later or whatever. But Jocko is a big one for me. Goggins, David, do you know David? Yeah, I follow Goggins. Sure. He's like freaking over the top. But
he's very over the top.
If I have to really push through, so that's more for like exercise typically, but it's it's work too. It's like, I'll be like, okay, I got to Goggins this. Like, I'm really tired right now, but I got to, I've got like 20 thank you cards I need to write to customers. Like, I got to Goggins it.
Yeah, that guy is insane.
He is. If you let him get in your head, he can motivate you. It's like,
yeah.
Imagine what he would say to me right now. Like, okay, I just got to keep going.
Be a lot of cuss words.
Yeah, it'd be a lot of F-bombs, that's for sure. Well, dude, man, this has been fun. I always enjoy. It's fun talking to you before this. Enjoy doing this. You know so much about the business. You have such a great perspective on the business. You've been through hell of a lot of stuff over the years and just kept impressing, man. It's inspiring and awesome to see that you've been, you've over the last couple of years, you now have an 18-month-old beautiful daughter, and we didn't really even get into balancing all that, but that just adds layers to it, man. But like I said, glad you're nearby, and
man,
we need to make this more of a more frequent thing. I know you're on the road a lot too, but
it's just, you just got to make the time, right?
I got to go stay in your hotel. I got to go. I want to take a night. I want to drive up there, take a bunch of work, chill, quiet, sit on that back porch, and just crank for a night.
Oh, it's a beautiful place to work, especially when the leaves are still green. I mean, people go up when the leaves turn, but the summer, the spring, the early spring, and the fall before it gets like fall up there, it's a magical time, man, in the mountains of North Carolina. So Skyline Village Inn. All right, whenever you're ready, just let me know.
I'm going to do it. All right, folks. I think that's going to be a wrap. Appreciate y'all listening, and more of these coming soon. See ya.
Bye, everybody.